What started as a cruel joke by a Grandmaster turned into a stunning lesson when a black woman's first move shattered every expectation and left the chess world speechless. The hall was grand and filled with whispers of excitement. The International Chess Exhibition in New York had drawn some of the best minds from all over the world. Lights flashed, cameras rolled, and the audience was made up of both serious chess players and curious fans. In the center of it all sat Grandmaster Viktor Ivanov, a man known not only for his unmatched skills in chess, but also for his arrogance. He had beaten champions, made bold predictions, and even taunted his opponents with his sharp tongue. Many admired his confidence, while others thought he often crossed the line. Viktor walked around the room with his signature smirk, playing multiple exhibition matches at once. It was a tradition he enjoyed, showing off his skill. Moving from one board to another, playing against many at the same time, he wore a crisp gray suit and carried himself like royalty. He loved the attention, and today the crowd gave it to him without hesitation. People clapped, laughed, and waited for his next clever comment or move. While moving from one board to another, Viktor's eyes wandered to the edge of the audience. There, standing near the refreshment table, was a young black woman, around her late 20s, watching the games closely. She wasn't dressed like most of the players or guests. She wore a plain denim jacket, jeans, and a simple hairstyle. She didn't carry a chessboard or wear a badge like the others. She wasn't laughing or clapping, just watching. Her eyes were sharp, focused, and quiet. Something about her caught Viktor's attention. Maybe it was the way she stood with confidence, not trying to fit in or impress anyone. Or maybe it was the fact that she stood out in a room full of polished and privileged people. Viktor whispered something to the host of the event, who chuckled and nodded. Then he walked toward her with a theatrical flair. "Would you like to play a game?" he asked loudly enough for people nearby to hear. The room quieted a little. People turned to look. The young woman looked up, slightly surprised. She wasn't expecting to be noticed, let alone invited to play. She raised an eyebrow. "Me?" she asked, pointing to herself. "Yes, you," Viktor said with a grin. "It's just for fun. Come join me. Let's see what you've got." Invitation didn't sound entirely friendly. It was playful, but not respectful. Some people chuckled, understanding the joke. Viktor often did things like this, inviting someone from the crowd, usually someone who looked like a beginner, to sit down and play for amusement. It was his way of entertaining the crowd and proving that even with distractions, he could win easily. The woman looked at the board, then at Viktor. She could see the smirks, the cameras, the eyes waiting to see her fumble. But she didn't seem nervous. Instead, she smiled gently and said, "All right, let's play." Viktor raised an eyebrow. He wasn't expecting her to say yes so quickly. A few of the guests whispered among themselves, wondering who she was. One of the event organizers quickly brought a spare chair. She sat down calmly, placed her bag beside her, and rested her hands on the table. "Do you play often?" Viktor asked, still grinning. "Sometimes," she said, keeping her tone neutral. He chuckled. "Well, let's make it a quick one." Viktor took the white pieces and made the first move. The game began. Most people in the room paid only slight attention at first. They expected it to be over in a few minutes. A Grandmaster versus a stranger from the crowd? What suspense could there be? But then she made her first move. It wasn't random, wasn't hesitant. It was fast, sharp, and highly strategic. Her move responded to Viktor's opening with the kind of precision only experienced players could manage. A few people near the board frowned slightly. One man whispered to his friend, "Wait, that's not a beginner's move." Viktor paused. He looked at the board, then back at her. His grin tightened, just a little. Still, he made his next move without saying anything. She responded again, quickly. No pause. No fear. And again, it was not what he expected. By the fifth move, Viktor's smile had faded completely. He sat down properly in his chair. The crowd around them, sensing that something unusual was happening, grew quiet. People started gathering closer. To watch? "She's playing the Sicilian defense," someone murmured. "Not just playing its advance," said another. "That's deep positional understanding." Viktor's eyes were now fully focused. His usual charm was gone. He looked across the board at her. "You've played before," he said flatly. She simply nodded. "Yes." "What's your name, Maya?" she said. "Maya Johnson?" He didn't recognize the name, but it now sounded serious. He studied her more carefully. She wasn't showing off. She wasn't smiling arrogantly like him. Her face was calm, thoughtful. It was clear she had no interest in drama or proving anything. She just loved the game. The mood in the room had completely changed. More people gathered. Phones were out, filming. The live stream cameras zoomed in on the match. Commentators who had been talking casually started paying attention. "She just pinned his knight," one said, amazed. "Wait a minute. That's a trap." She baited him. Victor was no longer playing a joke match. He was fighting to maintain his reputation. But the more he tried to take control, the more he realized he had underestimated her. Every move she made seemed quiet but powerful. She wasn't just defending, she was setting traps, closing in, taking control of the board one square at a time. Meanwhile, Maya said nothing. She didn't look around or play to the crowd. She simply played chess like it was the only thing that mattered. Her hands moved swiftly and confidently. Her eyes never left the board. People around the room began whispering her name. Some were Googling her on their phones. A few recognized an old news article from over a decade ago. Maya Johnson, a name that once appeared in youth chess tournaments, prodigy from Brooklyn. She had beaten state-level champions when she was just a teenager, but then she disappeared. No college tournaments, no club matches, no national records. It was like she vanished from the chess world. Until now, Victor leaned back in his chair, frustrated. He didn't say much, but his body language told the whole story. He'd been embarrassed, not by someone loud or boastful, but by someone who was patient, brilliant, and silent. And all it took was that first move. From the moment Maya made her first move, something shifted in the air around the chessboard. What had begun as a light-hearted game, almost a performance for the crowd, was now becoming a serious match. People were no longer smiling or joking. They were leaning forward, watching each piece being moved as if they were witnessing something rare and unforgettable. Viktor Ivanov, the world-famous Grandmaster, had made the first move confidently. He expected Maya to play slowly or make a basic mistake early in the game. But instead, she responded with a powerful and confident reply, stepping into the Sicilian defense, highly respected and complicated opening in chess. It was not something a beginner would even try. It was a bold choice. More importantly, it was the perfect answer to his move. Victor, who had played against some of the world's best players, felt a strange tightness in his chest. This wasn't how his games usually went. Normally, people were nervous around him. They hesitated. They second-guessed their moves. But Maya didn't seem nervous at all. She was calm, focused, and quick. She made each move as if she already knew what she was going to do 5 turns in advance. He leaned slightly forward and looked her in the eyes, trying to read her. But her face gave away nothing. She didn't look proud or excited. She didn't even seem interested in impressing anyone. Her eyes stayed fixed on the board, as if the pieces mattered more than the people around them. Victor moved again. This time more carefully. He no longer thought this would be over in 10 minutes. He was trying to find weaknesses, trying to test her, to push her into a trap. But every time he tried something tricky, she replied with the exact right move, blocking his plan without even blinking. By the 7th move, he realized he was not in control of the game. The people around them began to whisper. The commentators, who had been making light jokes earlier, were now watching the screen with serious expressions. "Did you see that?" one of them said. "She just castled at exactly the right moment. It's like she's reading him." Another replied, "Not just reading. She's anticipating. She's ahead of him." Phones were recording. The game was being live-streamed to thousands, maybe millions of people online. Viewers started asking the same question. Who is she? People began typing her name into search engines. Soon enough, the truth started to come out. Maya Johnson, the woman who was now giving the Grandmaster a real challenge, was not just some random member of the crowd. She had a history of forgotten one. When Maya was a teenager, she was a chess prodigy. She had once been featured in local newspapers as the girl genius from Brooklyn. She had won tournament after tournament, sometimes beating players twice her age. She played like a natural, like someone who could see through the board and into her opponent's thoughts. But then, around age 16, she stopped competing. No one really knew why. Some people online found interviews with coaches who remembered her, one man wrote. She could have been the next world champion. She had it all: talent, focus, fire, but she vanished. I always wondered what happened to her. Back at the chessboard, Victor was beginning to sweat. He tapped his fingers. On the table, something he did when he was unsure. He hated being unsure. It was a strange and uncomfortable feeling. He had played in championship matches across the globe, and he was used to pressure. But he wasn't used to this: a player who wasn't trying to impress, who wasn't afraid of him, and who had already gained complete control of the game within the first 15 moves. Every strategy he tried was blocked. Every trick he attempted was read and countered. Her style was not flashy, not aggressive. It was quiet, smooth, and exact. She wasn't trying to crush him. She was simply taking away his options one by one. She was like water flowing around rocks, wearing them down slowly but surely. People in the room could feel it. This wasn't just a surprise match anymore. It was becoming a legendary moment, something people would talk about for years. The room was packed, silent except for the occasional gasp or whisper. Even the event host, who had laughed when Victor invited her up, was now standing quietly at the back of the room, watching in disbelief. At one point, Victor leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms, and studied the board from a distance. It was something he did when he felt trapped. Maya didn't say a word. She waited. Her hands were folded on the table. Her eyes didn't wander. She didn't look at the crowd, the cameras, or even Victor. It was like she was playing the game for herself and no one else. Victor suddenly tried a desperate move, a sacrifice. He offered his bishop, hoping Maya would take it and allow him to spring a trap. But Maya didn't fall for it. She saw right through it and moved her rook instead, keeping the pressure on his king. The trap failed. The crowd reacted with murmurs of amazement. "She's not just good," someone whispered. "She's brilliant." Am I now? Victor's face had changed completely. He was no longer smirking. He was serious, focused, and even a little worried. He kept checking and rechecking the board. He started using more time for his moves, thinking harder, calculating deeper. But the deeper he went, the more he saw that he was slowly running out of space, time, and choices. Maya, on the other hand, kept playing at the same pace. Steady, confident, smooth. It was almost like she had already played this game before, in her head, and was just repeating the moves from memory. More people began entering the room. Drawn by the news spreading online and throughout the building, staff set up extra monitors. The event was supposed to be a simple exhibition, something fun and light, but now it had become the main event. The moment that truly shocked Victor came around the 20th move. He saw a series of possible moves that would let him escape the pressure and possibly take back some control. It wasn't easy, but it was clever. He reached for his knight and made the first move in that plan. But as soon as he did, Maya looked at the board, paused just briefly, then made a move that completely destroyed the entire plan before it even began. It was like she saw the whole thing coming. She didn't stop him. She made it pointless. Victor stared at the board. He had to admit it to himself. She was better prepared. She was seeing more than he was. And worse, he knew the crowd had seen it too. He exhaled slowly, trying to keep calm. His reputation was on the line. He was the Grandmaster. He couldn't lose to someone he had treated like a beginner in front of the whole world. But deep down, he was beginning to understand something else. This wasn't just about winning or losing. This was about respect. He had invited her to play as a joke. But this woman, Maya Johnson, wasn't a joke. She was a genius. And while he had spent years at the top being praised and celebrated, she had been forgotten by the chess world. Now the audience began to change too. Earlier, they had been amused by the idea of a random woman playing against Victor. But now, they were on her side. It's not because they wanted to see Victor lose, but because they were witnessing something powerful. Come back, a quiet rebellion. A reminder that greatness can be hidden in the most unexpected places. And so, as the game continued, Victor began to play not like a showman, but like a student. He studied her moves carefully, tried to keep up, tried to survive. But with every turn, Maya showed more control, more foresight, more brilliance. And it had all started with that one move, the moment she sat down, looked at the board, and decided not to be underestimated. The game had reached a point where time seemed to slow down. Every person in the hall had their eyes fixed on the board. The crowd no longer made noise. There was a deep silence in the air, broken only by the soft ticking of the chess clock and the occasional clink of glass from the refreshment table at the back. Viktor Ivanov, once full of pride and confidence, now looked like a man who had wandered into dangerous territory. His face showed the weight of the situation. The mighty Grandmaster had stepped into the match thinking it would be a short, amusing distraction. But what he found instead was a storm, quiet, brilliant, and unstoppable. Maya Johnson sat still, her posture calm but alert. Her fingers rested gently on the edge of the table. Her eyes clear and focused, never left the chessboard. While Victor looked more anxious with every passing minute, Maya looked like she belonged here as. If this was the world she had always been a part of, what made her playing even more incredible was how effortless she made it seem. Every move was done without drama, without hesitation. She didn't look around the room. She didn't seek attention. She wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone. She was simply playing chess pure, deep, intelligent chess. By the 25th move, Victor had lost one of his knights, one of his rooks, and a lot of control over the board. His king was exposed, and his pawns were scattered. Maya, on the other hand, had lost very little. Her pieces moved like they were part of a single mind, coordinated, sharp, and strategic. It felt like watching a carefully planned dance, where every step had purpose. Victor began using more time between each move. His hands would hover over the board, his eyes moving rapidly, scanning every possibility. Sometimes he rubbed his temples or leaned back in his chair, frustrated. This wasn't the Victor people were used to seeing. He usually moved with speed and confidence, giving clever remarks to the audience. But now, he had gone completely silent. He was fighting for his dignity. The commentators had also changed their tone. Earlier, they were laughing and joking about Victor's friendly challenge. Now, their voices were serious, even amazed. One of the most impressive mid-games I've ever seen, said one. She's not just beating him, she's doing it with perfect control, the other replied. He tried 3 traps already, and she saw through every one of them. She's not falling for anything. On social media, the live stream was going viral. Clips of Maya's early moves were being shared with captions like, "She played the Grandmaster like a book, and this is what genius looks like." People from around the world were watching. Grandmasters in other countries were tuning in, confused and curious. Who was this mysterious woman dominating one of the best players in the world? Some started commenting this. Maya Johnson. Where has she been? And she's not new. She's a hidden legend. Back at the board, Victor was trying his best to hold the position. He shifted strategies, trying to force a draw. If he couldn't win, maybe he could at least survive without losing. But Maya wasn't letting that happen either. Her control over the center of the board made it nearly impossible for him to breathe. Every time he tried to create space, she filled it. Every time he moved a piece forward, she blocked it or made it useless. It was as if she had built a net around him, slowly tightening it move by move. She didn't rush. She didn't get greedy. She waited for the perfect moment and then struck with precision. There was a moment. Around move 32, when Victor thought he saw a possible breakthrough. He had one pawn, still untouched, which he pushed forward. If he could get it to the end of the board, he could exchange it for a queen and possibly turn the game around. For a second, it gave him hope, but Maya had already seen it coming. As soon as Victor moved the pawn, Maya responded instantly. Her bishop slid across the board and pinned his queen to the king. It was a devastating move, and Victor's face dropped. He hadn't seen it. Or maybe he saw it too late. The crowd gasped. Phones went up. Cameras zoomed in. "That's it," whispered one of the players standing nearby. "It's over. He can't recover from that." Victor now looked like a man being crushed under his own pride. The same pride that had made him invite Maya as a joke was now punishing him in front of the world. He had underestimated someone, not just in talent, but in character. He thought she was just a spectator, someone to toy with. But she had turned the board into a battlefield, and now he was the one trying to escape. Still, Maya said nothing. She didn't celebrate. She didn't smile. She simply kept playing, her eyes steady, her body still. She had learned long ago not to let emotion affect her game. When she was younger, people had told her to smile more, to be more expressive when she won. But she had ignored all that. For her, chess wasn't about showing off. It was about truth. On the board, there were no Lee's only skill, strategy, and discipline. As the game reached its final 10 moves, the room was packed. Even players from other exhibition tables had left their boards and gathered around. It was no longer just a game, it was a lesson, a moment in history. Victor was now moving purely out of survival instinct. He tried to trade pieces, hoping to reduce the damage. But Maya didn't let him. She avoided the trades that would make things easier for him. She kept her advantage, slowly pressing forward. And then it came, move 40. Maya pushed her queen forward, backed by a rook. It was a checkmate in 2 moves unless Victor did anything. He looked at the board, looked at the crowd, looked at her. She met his eyes for the first time, not with pride, not with anger, but with calm, with grace, as if to say, "Now do you understand?" Victor exhaled deeply. He stared at the board a few more seconds, then looked back up and nodded once. "I resign," he said quietly. The room exploded with applause. Some clapped slowly, others shouted, some stood from their chairs. Victor pushed back from the table and stood up. Maya followed. But while Victor looked tired, Maya looked completely in control. People rushed toward her. Porters, photographers, fans, even chess masters who had once ignored her name. They wanted to shake her hand, ask her questions, praise her skill, but Maya didn't move toward them. She simply picked up her bag, gave a polite nod, and stepped aside from the table. Someone asked loudly, "Where have you been all these years?" Paused, then said softly, "Working, watching, waiting." Another person asked, "Will you play again?" Competitively? She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The answer was already written on the board. Meanwhile, Victor stood alone for a moment, his head slightly lowered. Then he turned toward Maya. "Thank you for the lesson," he said. She looked at him, nodded once, and walked away. What had started as a joke had ended as a legend. Everyone who witnessed it knew they had seen something special. A reminder that greatness is not always loud. Sometimes it waits in silence until the right moment to shine. After the game ended, the energy in the room remained electric. People were still talking about what they had just witnessed. Some were in disbelief, others were full of excitement. The event had turned from a casual exhibition into a historic moment, something that would be remembered for years. But while the crowd was buzzing, Maya Johnson quietly left the hall. She moved without hurry or fanfare, blending into the crowd like a shadow, almost invisible despite the waves of attention that had just surrounded her. Her mind was calm, but her heart was full of many emotions. Winning against Viktor Ivanov, the famous Grandmaster, was not just a victory in a game, it was a victory over years of being overlooked, underestimated, and ignored. She had proven in front of hundreds and millions online that she was a force to be reckoned with. But more than that, she had reminded the world and herself who she truly was. Maya's story was not an easy one. For many years, she had lived in the shadows. After her early successes as a chess prodigy, life took her in different directions, She faced challenges that forced her to step away from the competitive chess world. Family struggles, financial difficulties, and the constant pressure to conform to expectations had all made her retreat from the spotlight. But even when she stopped competing, Maya never stopped loving the game. Chess had been her first passion, her refuge, and her teacher. She spent countless hours studying games online, playing with friends, and practicing quietly in community centers. She never forgot her skills, but she also never wanted to return to the spotlight for the wrong reasons. She wanted to play on her own terms when the time was right. The invitation from Victor had come unexpectedly. It was almost like fate had thrown her back into the arena. At first she hesitated. She knew he was joking, and she wondered if it was worth accepting. But then she thought about all the times she had been underestimated, all the times people had doubted her because of who she was. This was a chance to show that those doubts were wrong, a chance to remind herself and the world that she belonged. After the game, she walked through the city streets. The night was quiet, the air cool. She passed by small cafes and late-night stores, her mind replaying the moves on the board. Every piece she had moved, every strategy she had used, came back to her in vivid detail. It was a game that she had already played thousands of times in her head, but this time it had been real. This time it had counted. She thought about Victor, too. She wondered what he must be feeling now. The pride that had once filled him was probably mixed with surprise and maybe a little humility. But she also felt respect for him. Despite his joke, he had challenged her, and he had faced her skills honestly. That was important. Chess was a game of respect, after all. In the days that followed, the story of the game spread like wildfire. News outlets picked up the story. Chess magazines wrote articles praising Maya's style and skill. Social media was filled with fans celebrating her victory. But alongside the excitement, there were also questions. Who was Maya Johnson? Why had she disappeared from the chess world? What would she do next? Maya kept a low profile. She didn't give many interviews. She preferred to let her game speak for itself. But slowly she began to open up to a few close friends and coaches who had supported her when she was younger. They encouraged her to return to the world she had once loved. They reminded her of the potential she still had, the future she could build. She started training again, carefully and thoughtfully. No pressure, no expectations, just the joy of the game. She joined local tournaments and won quietly, without much fanfare. Each victory was a step back into the light, a reminder that she was still a champion. But Maya also wanted more than just personal success. She wanted to use her story to inspire others. She knew how hard it was for young girls, especially girls of color, to find their place in the chess world. She remembered the loneliness of being the only black girl in the tournaments, the whispers and the doubts. She wanted to change that. Slowly, she began to speak at schools and community centers. She shared her story, not just the victories, but the struggles too. She talked about the importance of perseverance, of believing in yourself even when others don't. She encouraged young players to find their own path and to never give up on their dreams. Her message was powerful. People listened, doors opened. She was invited to international events, not as a joke or a surprise guest, but as a respected player and role model. Meanwhile, Viktor Ivanov was also changed by the experience. He publicly acknowledged his mistake in underestimating Maya. He praised her talent and courage, and even reached out to her privately, suggesting they train together. Victor realized that the chess world needed to be more open, more inclusive, and that true talent could come from anywhere. The chess community began to shift. More tournaments started offering scholarships and support for underrepresented players. More coaches volunteered their time to mentor young girls from diverse backgrounds. The story of Maya and Victor's game became a symbol of change. Despite the attention and new opportunities, Maya remained humble. She kept her focus on the game and the people she wanted to help. She knew that this was just the beginning of a long journey. At night, she still sat by the chessboard, quietly moving pieces, planning her next games. She thought about the past but looked toward the future. She knew there would be challenges ahead. But she was ready. Her victory over Victor had opened a door, but it was her passion, her strength, and her belief in herself that would carry her forward. And so, the story of Maya Johnson became more than just a surprise win. It became a story of courage, resilience, and the power of never giving up on your dreams, even when the world tries to write you off. After Maya's incredible victory and the waves it created in the chess world, life began to change in ways she had never imagined. The story of her unexpected triumph over Viktor Ivanov spread beyond just the chess community and entered the wider public's imagination. People saw her not just as a chess player, but as a symbol of something bigger: hope, perseverance, and breaking barriers. Yet for Maya, the win was only the beginning. She knew that success brought new challenges, new expectations, and a long road ahead. In the weeks following the game, Maya's phone rang constantly. Invitations poured in from television shows, international tournaments, and conferences focused on diversity and empowerment. Some people wanted to hear her speak about her experience. Others wanted her to teach or mentor young players. At first, the attention felt overwhelming. She was a private person, used to quiet rooms and focused play, not the spotlight of fame. But slowly, she began to realize that this attention could be a powerful tool to inspire others. Maya started to travel more, attending chess tournaments across the country and around the world. Each event was a new experience. She was no longer an unknown player, but a celebrated figure. Respect she received was something she had always dreamed of, but had rarely experienced firsthand. At these tournaments, many young players approached her with shy smiles, asking for advice or autographs. She took time with each one, sharing encouragement and stories from her own journey. Despite the excitement, Maya never lost her focus on improving her game. She returned to intensive training with her coach, spending hours analyzing classic matches, studying openings, and practicing endgames. She knew that every new challenge would require her to be better, stronger, and smarter. The chessboard was still her sanctuary, a place where she could think clearly and express herself fully. The rivalry between Maya and Victor also became a favorite topic for chess fans and journalists. Victor, humbled but inspired by his defeat, reached out to Maya again. He wanted to learn from her, to push himself to new limits. The two agreed to meet regularly, training together and sharing strategies. Their relationship evolved from one of competition to mutual respect and friendship. Victor openly praised Maya's skill and determination, often saying in interviews that she had changed his perspective on chess and life. Maya's story also sparked important conversations in the chess world about inclusion and diversity. Many organizations started programs to support players from underrepresented communities, especially girls and young women of color. Scholarships, mentorship programs, and community events grew in number, all inspired by Maya's example. She often participated in these efforts, using her voice to advocate for change and to create opportunities for others who faced similar challenges at one point. Maya was invited to speak at a global conference on women in sports. Standing in front of thousands of people, she shared her story honestly: the struggles, the doubts, and the moments when she almost gave up. She talked about the power of persistence, of believing in oneself even when others don't, and of using setbacks as fuel to move forward. Her speech was met with standing applause and left many inspired, yet not everything was easy. The pressure of her newfound fame sometimes weighed heavily on Maya. She faced skepticism from some who questioned if her victory was a fluke or downplayed because of bias. She also dealt with the challenge of balancing her personal life with her career, navigating moments of loneliness and exhaustion. But through it all, Maya held on to her values and her love for the game. She also became a role model for young girls everywhere. Letters and messages poured in from children who saw in Maya someone who looked like them, who had faced obstacles but had never given up. These messages became a source of strength for Maya. She realized that her impact went far beyond the chessboard. She was helping to change lives. Over the next few years, Maya competed in numerous national and international tournaments, She won many titles and earned the respect of players and coaches worldwide. Her style of play was admired for its creativity, patience, and sharp tactical skill. She continued to grow not just as a player, but as a leader in the chess community. Maya also began coaching young players, many of whom came from backgrounds similar to hers. She taught them not only about chess strategies, but also about confidence, resilience, and the importance of dreaming big. Her coaching sessions became popular, filled with enthusiasm and hope. Looking back, Maya sometimes thought about that moment when Victor had invited her to play as a joke. What could have been a humiliating experience had turned into the defining moment of her life. It taught her that opportunities could come from unexpected places, and that true strength often showed itself when others least expected it. The story of the Grandmaster, who invited a black woman to play chess as a joke hand, instantly regretted it after her first move, became a story about breaking barriers and rewriting expectations. It was about a woman who dared to believe in herself and change the world around her. With her talent and courage, Maya's journey showed that no matter where you come from or what others say about you, your passion and perseverance can lead you to greatness. And that sometimes the greatest victories happen not just on the board, but in the hearts and minds of those who dare to challenge the status quo.